Hello, I thought I'd record this brief video just to go over what sort of content, what sort of material we're going to learn in this class. So the main goal as we start the class is to develop a framework so that we can prove things and make rigid our observations of structures that we'll see in the course. And in order to do this, we need to build up some language and logic. And so that's really our first chapter is chapter 1, logic. After this, we're going to use logic to define sets and work with sets. So this is sort of the most basic structure we can have in this class is sets. Now, with logic and sets, we're going to use these. We'll use logic to sort of define them and then use sets as a playground for them. We're going to get into proofs. And so that's chapter 3 is proofs. I'll tell you about this color scheme I'm doing in a second. So proofs, I'll say, how about I say proof methods? We're going to learn some methods of proof. So right, logic will help us understand why they work, and sets will sort of be our playground for learning these things. Now, after proofs, there's actually one more proof technique that isn't given in chapter 3, but we'll find incredibly useful for this class, and that is induction. So that's chapter 4 is induction. So that's a proof technique in and of itself. But also along with induction, we're going to learn about sequences and sort of encompassing this is the idea of recurrence relationships, and things like this. So we'll talk about that with this as well. Next up, we're going to use what we've learned so far to introduce some new structures. Well, not really introduce, but maybe delve into a lot deeper than you've dealt with before, now that we have proofs and logic behind everything. And so chapter 7, we'll go to next, and this is the integers. So we're going to study the integers that we know and love in greater depth and detail. And actually, right before integers, I sort of went out of order on this one. After proof methods and induction, we're also going to come off this way and take a look at another structure, so a more, I would say, more detailed or, just a deeper structure than sets, something with more structure than sets, and that is relations and functions. And those are sort of built off of sets, and very important. So that's sort of the third unit of things we'll be doing. And then lastly, we get into some of the stuff that I find most fun, which is combinatorics and graph theory. So coming off of this, we'll come into chapter 8, which is our basics of counting. So I'll just say counting here. And really what I think it's funny, we just call this counting, and then chapter 9, we call advanced counting. So maybe you're thinking, oh, I already know how to count. I don't need to take this class. Well, we have another term for these things, and that's combinatorics. And it really is sort of the study of counting. Counting how many structures satisfy a certain property, organizing structures in a desirable way, things like this. And there are techniques that we need to learn here in order to count objects. And then lastly, coming off of this, and this is a part of combinatorics in my mind, but we see it as a separate chapter here, and that's chapter 12. This is graph theory. Now, graph theory is what I did my PhD in. It's the topic of my thesis. And so I'm very excited to get to this, but this is typically we get to this during the last couple weeks of class. And we sort of work our way there. This is a graph structure. It's a structure just like a set or a function or a relation or a set of numbers or a sequence. It's another kind of structure that's really useful for things like, anything really, computer science, biology, physics. You find graphs in basically any scientific discipline. And so that'll be really fun to get into. So if you've read through the syllabus, you'll know that there are 4 unit exams. And so how I've divvied up the colors here, this first blue one, this is exam 1, or I'll just say unit 1, that exam 1 will cover. So this is unit 1. This is sort of just how I have found to organize the class that works best for me in terms of organizing it in my own mind and in terms of assessing what you know. And so that's why we'll have an exam over each one of these. So integers, relations, functions, these are all covered in Unit 3. And then lastly, we get to that cool stuff that I mentioned, which is combinatorics and graph theory. And this is Unit 4. Now, this is sort of loose. This might change a little bit. The topics that we learn might change depending on what you all are interested in. But this is how I see it shaking out. And it should be a really fun semester. This is one of my favorite classes to teach, and I look forward to having you here. All right. See you later.